Welcome to NARAL's The Morning After. Each Thursday, our podcast brings you the latest on reproductive health care, progressive politics, and the fight to keep abortion safe and legal. NARAL's The Morning After is a production of NARAL Pro-Choice Ohio. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at ProChoiceOH. Enjoy the show.
Hi, I'm Jaime.
Hi, I'm Vashitta.
Hi, I'm Gabe. Welcome to NARAL's The Morning After.
Yes.
So this is episode 76
Woohoo.
for our podcast listeners.
We missed our
Nice.
75th anniversary.
Yeah.
Well, I missed your 75th anniversary.
Episode 75, yeah. Episode 76, this is exciting because this is our kind of first, really it's our second, episode on the radio.
Yeah.
So we are excited to be a part of the WGRN radio family. If you're
Yay.
in Columbus, yeah, it's totally awesome. If you're in Columbus, you can listen at 94.1 FM on the actual radio. We're thrilled. So the show now airs 9 a.m. on Fridays as part of the Women's Power Hour. So you can check it out at WGRN.org or 94.1 FM.
You have
On the
a
real
great
radio.
voice. Doesn't he have a radio voice?
He does have the radio voice.
I'm absolutely excited.
We can tell.
So,
I love it.
And
It's like a kid in a candy shop. to me.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
People who are just listening can't see the big, huge grin on his face, but
It's
it's there.
Oh, that's funny.
For radio listeners, this is your first time hearing us. Welcome. You can find back episodes, all 75 previous episodes, at our blog, naralprochoiceohio.com. It's on Apple Podcasts, it's on Podbean, or you can find the blog on WordPress and watch videos of all of our episodes on our YouTube channel. So I thought since this is kind of a restart on this entire show, we'd introduce ourselves. Jaime, you want to go first?
Sure. So I've been with NARAL since 2002 in some way, shape, or form. I actually started on the board and then joined the staff. So I started actually as a field person, doing all the field work, all the organizing, all the Pride festivals, all the stuff that Vashitta and Annie are getting to do this month. Yay! And then moved into a policy role, doing all the legislative lobbying and those kinds of things. And then when we went from a staff of 2 to a staff of 6 2 years ago, I moved into the deputy director role. As we were joined by our other staff members, including Gabe and now Vashitta, much more recent addition to the staff. So I do all of our legislative lobbying and those kinds of things and a lot of our political work.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that brings it to me.
Uh-huh.
So I'm Vashitta, and I actually am new. I started last month. I know it's been like a month and a half now. So
Time flies when you're having fun, right?
I am the field and political director, and so I'm excited to work on the field program here at NARAL, as well as doing the political aspect of the work once the midterm elections come around, which is going to be very soon.
Yeah.
So that's going to be exciting.
Right. So I'm Gabriel. I'm our communications manager. I joined NARAL 2.5 years ago, following 6 years with Planned Parenthood here in Ohio. I kind of had no idea how on earth I stumbled into that gig. After doing union work and legislative work, it was just sort of an unexpected next step. So here I am. Listeners will eventually meet the other members of the NARAL Pro-Choice Ohio team. Our executive director, Kelly Copeland, up in Cleveland. And she's got great staff of Pam and Annie, Ashley and Rachel, and all, sorts of others who come in and out of our professional world. I think the organization, it's Ohio's oldest pro-choice advocacy organization. I don't know if that's true. I'm claiming it.
Well, we're definitely the only advocacy-only organization. So, a lot of people ask the question, so how are you different from Planned Parenthood? We have a unique role in the fact that we are just an advocacy organization. So Planned Parenthood is also a healthcare service organization. So sometimes can't take the hard stances and those kind of things that we can, because we don't have to protect federal grant dollars coming in and helping us provide healthcare services. So we work in tandem with Planned Parenthood and NOW and NCJW and URGE and New Voices and all kinds of different organizations across the state to really create like the best movement towards access to reproductive health rights and justice in our state.
Right. And to accomplish that, about 2 years ago or so, we created this show to have a weekly conversation about sexual politics in Ohio, what's happening across the country, what's happening in our state house, in our city council offices, and to really bring information about the work that we do and ways for people to get involved through different forms of mediums, right? Okay, so to that end, we'll get moving and we'll start talking about what's up with national legislation. So what happened today?
Nothing really. It's boring. Nothing's really going on.
Exactly.
Just taking away healthcare from 23 million Americans. Just another day in Washington,
exactly.
D.C., actually.
Everyday practice, right? Since Trump has gotten into office, I should say. So yeah.
Yeah, so last night, it was really funny. So last night, the longest day of the year was the day that Planned Parenthood picked to do their Pink Out the Night events with light up signs. So, we had to drag out Sarah did a fabulous organizing meeting beforehand. We spoke about state legislature stuff and federal stuff and with the Planned Parenthood volunteers and everything, and waited and waited and waited and waited for the sun to go down. It's going to go down. It's really going to go sometime. But we finally got outside of the Franklinton Healthcare Center with the signs and had a great Sarah led a really great rally and had a really good kind of visibility moment, making sure that people understood what was going on and how they can be involved. Right. So because as part of this, it's talking about repealing Obamacare and the ACA, but as a cookie to the legislators who may not want to actually vote for something like this, they added in defunding Planned Parenthood into the bill. So it's repealing the ACA, which is bad enough, but then also saying that Planned Parenthood wouldn't be able to get Medicaid reimbursements any longer. So, and as Stella points out, every single time I hear from her and hear her talking about these things, it's not like, the federal government writes one of those big, huge, sweepstakes checks out to Planned Parenthood every year. It's a woman comes in and has a pap smear at Planned Parenthood and Medicaid reimburses Planned Parenthood for those services, just like your insurance reimburses for services provided. So,
pretty much every, form of medical care that almost everybody gets. I have never met a single person who just walks into the doctor's office and pays cash for their care. If you have private insurance, that you either pay for independently or you get through your employer, or if you're on Medicaid or Medicare, it's all a reimbursement system. The doctor says, oh, we did, 10 of these sort of checkups and, they submit it to the insurance company, and whatever the pre-negotiated rate of reimbursement is what the doctor's office gets back. And then sometimes, they charge you the balance. That's how it all works.
Yeah.
So now Republicans in the Senate are agreeing with Republicans in the House, all in Congress, that this whole system of reimbursement, which is how our entire healthcare system has functioned for our entire lives, shouldn't work that way for just one set of providers.
Well, and it's like actually, there's so much. I can't say it's the most ridiculous thing, but one of the most ridiculous things about it,
pretty darn close,
is the fact that I kind of remember all of those Tea Party protests that happened when they were passing the Affordable Care Act, and how every single one of the Republicans was saying how Obama was going to tell you what doctor you couldn't go to and what doctor you had to go to, and that was bad.
Right.
It's exactly what they're doing. They're saying if you use Planned Parenthood as your doctor, you can't go there anymore. Sorry about your luck. You have to find somebody else.
Right.
So, it's only when their doctor is getting attacked or they don't have a political, game to play with a certain type of provider that they actually care about you actually being able to see your doctor.
Right.
In reality, they don't give a crap about which doctor you see and those kinds of things. And that's obvious by the rest of the bill.
Right.
And the fact that they're going to reduce subsidies for thousands of people across the state and the country and, just completely basically destroy access to health insurance and healthcare in our country.
Right. Yeah. Since this is national legislation, the national branch of our organization, NARAL Pro-Choice America, they put out a statement after the bill was released They said the Republican proposal is a direct attack on the health and well-being of hundreds of millions of Americans and a savage attack on women's health care in particular. It is just as cruel as the proposal approved by the House. By defunding women's health centers, denying abortion coverage to Americans who get their insurance through the exchanges or who receive tax subsidies, and slashing health care for the families who need it most, it's clear that the Trump administration and the GOP's concerns with being, quote, pro-life only reaches as far as the nearest tax cut for millionaires.
Yeah.
Yeah. What can you say to that? I mean, I look at what's going on the state level as well as the federal level, and I just continue to shake my head that it's mostly, as someone on my Twitter feed put it yesterday, straight white men,
right,
middle-aged white men who's taking away these services. And it's like, why? I don't understand that at all. So, it has my mind boggled, but, unfortunately, this is what we're trying to fight against. This is what we were speaking out against last night at the Planned Parenthood protest. I actually had people coming up to me asking what was going on and, and asking questions and being concerned. And, I'm glad that they were able to be involved, because some of those people who don't know are the people that we need to vote and, to be more knowledgeable about the subject. So,
yeah. Well, and I think too, it's the depth of all of this. Well, and also the politics and visual. So, the House passed a bill that's, from what I can tell, nearly identical to what the Senate's now proposing. There might be slightly less, we're going to be mean to people who've already had cancer and those kinds of things with the pre-existing condition stuff, but that's still to be completely worked out. And also, he doesn't have the votes yet. He doesn't have 50 votes. So there's going to be wheeling and dealing on this bill. So
I actually heard there was going to be 3 GOP senators who weren't going to vote for it, and they need at least.
Yeah, they need at least 2. They can only lose 2.
Yeah, so that's maybe an issue.
So I mean, they don't know that they're going to get the 50, and there's going to be some wheeling and dealing. And as I read in a Slate article yesterday, I was like, it can only get better when they start wheeling and dealing, right?
Right.
So we don't know what the final one's going to look like, but the House passed it. Trump celebrated in the Rose Garden. Looked like a frat party, for what I could tell, and
looks like a death penalty.
That sounds about right.
It really was. And then, like, what, a month later, he sits down with congressional leaders and calls the House bill mean. Like, so you celebrate meanness? Great, that's fabulous.
Right.
And this version is just as mean. So I don't know.
It's horrific.
Yeah.
I mean,
to say the least.
And many people have pointed out that these are the exact sort of attacks on healthcare that Trump, believe it or not, actually campaigned against. Joe Scarborough, of all people, he tweeted out that the GOP bills raise deductibles, cut coverage, and slashes Medicaid. Trump promised repeatedly to voters he would do none of the above. Shoving through these. And I am shocked that Trump would not stand by his word.
Did they really believe he was going to be a man of his word?
Well, and even beyond being a man of your word, he just had no freaking idea what he was talking about.
None.
He thought, because, and that's why when you have any kind of clue about how any of this works, when you listen to Trump on the campaign trail, you knew that he was full of crap, because the fact was that you couldn't keep deductibles low, and you couldn't keep premiums low, and you couldn't keep funding Medicaid if you wanted to do all the other things that the Republicans wanted to do with healthcare reform. Actually, healthcare dismantling is more like it. So, there was just no way for him to actually keep that promise. And if he had any idea or had any kind of advisor around him that had any kind of idea, they would have told him not to say that crap, because there's no way you can promise that.
Right.
But we all know Trump does what he wants to do, and people around him pretty much serve him, and he let him do what he wants to do. So there's no type of accountability anywhere around this man. So
right. Yeah. I mean, slashing Medicaid would have absolutely horrific consequences. Cecile Richards tweeted a graphic that was actually produced by the New York Times today. Medicaid covers 49% of all births, 64% of all nursing home residents, 40% of all poor adults, and 76% of all poor children.
Sounds really pro-life to cut that program, doesn't it?
Right. And 60% of all children with disabilities. The disabled community really got an enormous amount of attention today as we're recording this. They've been occupying the halls of Congress, literally, sitting in, staging protests, and being hauled out by U.S. Capitol Police today. I can't imagine being not that there are many moderate Republicans, but I mean, you cited that there was three Republicans who have said that they can't vote for this. There's got to be more out there that are looking at police hauling out people in wheelchairs and thinking to themselves,
despicable.
"Oh my God, we're the baddies."
Yeah, like what are we doing? Like, let's rethink now.
Yeah.
Right. So absolutely horrific bill. We'll continue to see how this unfolds. Continue to help groups that are attempting to, put this in front of Rob Portman specifically. He unfortunately has not yet realized that this bill is terrible.
Yeah.
Sherrod Brown held a town hall on Facebook Live today where he, explained exactly in detail what his problems were with this legislation. So we're, as usual, grateful for Sherrod Brown.
Absolutely.
Wait, what? Some senators are actually talking to their constituents?
Exactly.
What's that about?
Answering questions.
A few, yeah.
Yeah. People who have a spine and actually know how to do their jobs well.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's Rob Portman. So yeah, we'll be keeping up the pressure. So join us, especially on social media.
And keep an eye on it. I know there's a bunch of demonstrations and various things that are being planned for the next couple of days, next week or so, because the timeline, in case you haven't heard it, is that they really want this done by the time they leave for the July 4th recess, which is next week. So next week is the last week that they're here before they go away for the 4th of July. So we will be keeping an eye on that along with all the other stuff happening in the State House, because there's not enough going on with just the federal stuff.
Right.
Yeah. The state's joining in on all of the attacks on healthcare as well. So even if the federal government can't figure out how to do it, the state's going to do it for them. So we don't really have to worry about that.
It was said yesterday, if we're moving on now, it was said yesterday when I was listening to Session and, listening in on Session that, we don't know what's going to happen in Washington. That's why we want to implement this freeze. We're not saying forever, just for maybe a year.
Yeah, when you stop a program, you're not going to start it up again.
Yeah. I don't even know if I should just say who that came from, but I just
Well, no, and it's just, they're all ridiculous. I mean, and the whole process is ridiculous. So this all started in December, where Kasich came before the legislature and said, watch out, we're headed towards a recession. We're going to have to cut all this stuff out of the budget. We're going to have to do all these, really, really severe things because we can't let the Ohio economy fail. And it was funny because it sounded like a candidate. It didn't sound like the guy who's been in charge of the Ohio economy since 2011.
Right.
Hello.
He was saying somehow this has happened.
Yeah, I don't know how this happened.
Governor for 6 years.
Maybe because you cut taxes all over the place that you shouldn't.
Do you think they're just trying to induce some type of panic to be able to do what they want to do?
100%.
I'm just want to make everyone in the economy who's not really aware of what's going on, think that something else is going on.
Yeah, so 2 years ago, I think it was the last budget cycle, they passed what the Democrats are calling an LLC loophole. So they made this business tax exemption, and they said, if you have an LLC, you are entitled to all of these ridiculous tax cuts. Not surprisingly, there's a lot of people that work in our state, like our state legislators, who have LLCs.
Right. Exactly.
So they could have just eliminated that LLC loophole out of this business tax cut that they passed 2 years ago and had all the money they needed to fully fund schools, to fully fund local governments, to fully fund Medicaid, to fully fund health insurance. But they refuse to do that.
Yeah.
They refuse to create the money they need for these programs. So instead, they just slash them all over the place.
Right.
So local governments are losing an insane amount of money. And instead of giving it to local governments to do what they need to do, they're moving it into opiate addiction services and some other stuff, which means that watch for your next local election, because there'll probably be an income tax increase in your local government.
Yeah, I mean, since
because
they
need
don't want
money.
to take the money for the opiate crisis from the rainy day fund
Yeah.
and from local governments, then that is going to
Yeah.
it's going to show.
Mhm.
I think people are going to see things. It's going to be a hit. A hit on the economy. Well, not the economy, the low income poor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's the whole economy. I think your former boss, Julia Tavares, said it the best yesterday, is that you can't be unhealthy and be able to show up for school every day ready to learn and show up for work every day ready to work. You have to be healthy in order for that to happen. And slashing Medicaid by imposing a freeze on the Medicaid expansion as of July 1st, 2018, asking the federal government for an exemption from the individual and employer mandates from the ACA so that your employer doesn't have to give you insurance any longer as a part of your benefit package. And then imposing work requirements and premiums on people on Medicaid will just severely impact access to healthcare in Ohio. And all of those things are in the state budget that the Senate passed yesterday and is now in conference committee working out all the differences between the House and the Senate.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like driving you to death. Like, how am I supposed to get up and go to work every day? Or how somebody who's on Medicaid or Medicare and who may be disabled, or I don't know, whatever their situation is, how do you expect people to live and continue to thrive in society and contribute to society if we're not healthy, if we don't have those health benefits? Doesn't make any sense. So
and these are all the expansion population. So these are people who have incomes between 100 and 138% of poverty. So these aren't people who are just sitting around doing nothing all day. They're working.
Yeah.
And if they're not working, it's because they do have health problems.
Absolutely.
One of the ridiculous things about the work requirements is that it exempts people who are currently in drug treatment, but it doesn't exempt people who are on waiting lists for drug treatment.
That doesn't make any sense.
Exactly.
None of this makes sense.
Yeah. So, you've got these people who are trying to get into drug treatment, but our drug treatment facilities are all way overbooked and there are waiting lists all over the place for them.
Which is why they were trying to create more beds.
Yeah, trying to create more beds, trying to fund this better, which we are woefully bad at. And so now you're going to tell this person that they either need to find a job or they lose their health insurance. So they're on a waiting list to get into rehab. And they lose their Medicaid because they can't keep a job because they still have an addiction issue that they're trying to get help for.
That's exactly what Senator Tavares was explaining.
Yeah. And then they get into rehab and they don't have insurance anymore. And how the hell are they supposed to pay for it?
Right.
Oops. How the heck are they supposed to pay for it? So yeah, I mean, this is the kind of thing that's happening in our state government. And they're using this, oh my God, we're falling into a recession as an excuse to make these cuts so that they don't have to be responsible for being the ridiculous jerks that they really are.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I know.
Like, there really are no words. It's just,
I mean,
Oh, there are words.
yeah.
we're just not allowed to say them anymore because we're on the
Exactly.
radio. If you want to see how we really feel about things, you should listen to the podcast episodes from before.
Yeah.
But and then that's not the only ridiculous thing in the budget, because we say we don't have any money to fund anything and we're taking away all these things, but we're giving $600,000 to crisis pregnancy centers.
Ta-da! Came from somewhere, right?
Yeah. And they took $100,000 away from a newly created program they'd created for domestic violence program. So they couldn't find $100,000 for a domestic violence program, but they could find $600,000 to give to these places that lie to people and give misinformation.
Right. To crisis pregnancy centers.
Yes.
Sounds like priorities are so screwed up.
Yes.
Yes.
So CPCs, as we refer to them, we've talked about before. These phony, I don't even like calling them phony clinics because I don't want to use the word clinic. There's no health care provided. No. It's a storefront. They lure people in. You've seen the billboards in your neighborhood. Pregnant, scared, call us.
Yeah.
Women come in, sometimes they think they're going into an abortion clinic or they're going into some family planning healthcare center, maybe going to go see an OBGYN. Not really, because there's no actual medical care there. It's just all lies and talk and pamphlets and shameful attempts to persuade women not to choose an abortion, or to present so much misinformation that she either doesn't know what her real options are, or she's so delayed that now she's actually beyond the deadlines to get a less expensive procedure, one easier to access, or a procedure altogether. horrible, horrible organizations.
Yet they're being funded.
$600,000 of our
With
tax
your
dollars.
state tax dollars. Yay!
Right. So this is a shame. Senator Charlita Tavares, big fan of ours.
Very much so.
We're a fan of hers. She offered an amendment to the budget process as it was going through the Ohio Senate the other day. Because not only do these facilities get the $600,000, they also get money from these Choose Life license plates.
Yes.
And so Senator Tavares has been a longtime champion of reducing the state's infant mortality rate. She's done, more work on this topic than pretty much everybody else in the state house.
Yep.
And so she understands that crisis pregnancy centers don't help our infant mortality rate, or if they provide any benefit, it's not an efficient use of tax dollars.
Absolutely.
This money would be much better given to actual healthcare providers who could provide real education.
Yeah.
So her amendment said, hey, let's take this cash that we're getting from these Choose Life license plates and give this to actual state initiatives that get infant mortality reduction money from the State Department of Health or Children's Services departments. This sounds like a great idea.
Doesn't it? I'm sure it was immediately adopted and unanimously approved, right, Gabe?
They tabled the amendment in less time than it took you to say that sentence. Shot down.
Yeah.
Ohio Republicans would not entertain the idea of giving this money to actual healthcare providers to actually save infants in the state.
Yeah. That sounds about right. Unfortunately, that's the state that we live in right now. She has some very good, valid points. Like, why don't we try to uplift and help the kids that are actually here right now that we have to watch grow up and help grow up to be, very obviously supporting adults. And it was just like, no. Yeah. They probably gave her the, what are you talking about, look, and kept just moved right
They
along.
probably didn't even look at her because they probably didn't even hear the words out of her mouth because that process is so ridiculous.
Right. So the state budget is terrible as always. We're continuing to monitor that, make sure no abortion restrictions get inserted into that bill.
Yes.
Speaking of abortion restrictions, we need to quickly move to our final topic, the abortion method ban. It got its second hearing in the Senate Judiciary Committee. How do you think that went?
I don't know that I have words. I started the day thinking I might need surgical correction because I was going to roll my eyes so far back that a surgeon was going to have to roll them back forward for me. But no, it was kind of like the CPCs, medical misinformation after medical misinformation after one witness after another. I think though, because we're short on time, let's talk about everyone's favorite witness was Denise Leopold from Northeast Ohio, Right to Life.
Cited The Handmaid's Tale as a reason why this abortion ban should be put in place.
Yeah, because she didn't understand why we brought, a couple of weeks ago, last week, we brought the handmaids to the hearing, the first hearing on this bill. And so she cited that protest saying she didn't understand, the book was about, religious zealots taking over and taking away women's rights. And she didn't understand why the handmaids were brought in here because women have the right to choose and women have the right to have a baby or not. But only because women can choose, not always actually, as a fact, to have sex or not have sex. No birth control, no abortion. Women can choose just because they can choose not to have sex or have sex, which is completely false in a lot of ways. So yeah, it was hilarious because I was like, yeah, that's why we brought the handmaids here, because religious zealots are trying to take over our government and take away women's rights. Yeah, you got it. Good job, but not really.
Right.
So, she actually said that women have the right, that have all their rights. They haven't been taken away, 18 different abortion and reproductive health care.
That actually drew laughter from the audience.
I thought that was hilarious too.
I would say that about half the people who were there were in handmaids costumes last week. So I think that was especially not lost on that population. So we don't know whether or not it'll have a third hearing next week. It's possible that it will. The committee schedules haven't come out yet. So kind of stay tuned. You can check out our social media on Tuesday morning. We'll be covering that if it does happen next Tuesday.
Yes, and that would be opponent testimony for those who aren't sure where they're at in the process. And
so that would finally be our chance to maybe drop some facts on the issue, because that's been woefully lacking at this point.
Okay.
yeah.
So let's close that out with our Let's Get It On segment to talk about upcoming events. So we're working festivals and more festivals this weekend.
One more weekend of festivals.
One more.
Right.
We're going to push through. So yeah, this weekend we have Cleveland Pride, Cincinnati Pride, and ComFest. How exciting.
Right. Yeah. I'll be at ComFest.
I'll be in Cincinnati.
You'll be in Cincinnati. Annie's going to be in Cleveland Pride. Jamie's going to be meeting with some of our other progressive partners, tomorrow. We've got an incredibly busy weekend.
Yes.
For those going to ComFest, the Busting Abortion Stigma Workshop is going to be held Saturday at 12:35 on the Solar Stage. This is being put on by our friends at Women Have Options. So this should be a really good discussion that Stephanie's going to be hosting. She says, although it's one of the most common medical procedures, abortion remains highly stigmatized. Unlike other reproductive health services, abortion is shrouded in secrecy and silence. When people talk about it, these conversations are highly charged and fail to accurately capture the lived experiences of those who have had abortions. Learn how to bust abortion stigma with the use of compassionate language and open personal conversations, calling folks into the abortion access movement. I don't know if people have met Stephanie Sherwood from Women Have Options, but those two paragraphs kind of describe her perfectly.
She's awesome, and you should totally go check out her workshop next week.
Right.
Awesome.
This weekend, not next week.
If you're at ComFest.
Yes.
On June 28th, Capitol Care, there's a Capitol Care counter protest at the clinic in Toledo. They will be protesting the protesters.
Yes.
So you can
They're doing another big, huge prayer rally outside of the clinic. So we're going to be out there to protect the patients.
Right. And that takes us to the end of June. So
yes.
Anything else you want to add on to that?
Probably that will be in here like Walking Zombies next week. Like we're on Field of Walking Dead or something.
Yeah, so stay tuned for the budget vote next week. Stay tuned for a possible hearing on the method ban, and then stay tuned for the vote on the healthcare repeal too. So we'll let everybody know about that as it happens.
Next week. Yeah.
Right.
Stay tuned.
We'll see everybody next time.
Bye.
Bye.